Welcome to Radio Free Midworld, a podcast about the Dark Tower series of books written by Stephen King. My name is Cole Ross, and today I am joined by Jeremy Greer. Hey, Jeremy.
Hey, Cole. How you been, man?
I've been doing good. It's good to have you back.
It's good to be back. I like doing this podcast a whole lot. I don't know if you know this about me. I really like Stephen King and the Dark Tower. I'm really into it.
I know, or I have gathered as much, and that's why I'm excited to get to this. To get to this book, because I like this book quite a bit. After we finished the last book, Song of Susannah, I was not able to stop myself. I binged this entire book because I had to know. And I remember not liking a lot of this book when I first read it for the first time. Yeah.
And I've read it maybe 2 or 3 times since, but reading it just most recently surprised myself by how much I just adored the ending and liked a lot of the events that led up to it.
Yes.
There's only one significantly bad thing that I have a lot of salt about, and I will talk about that on the last episode of this podcast.
Gotcha. I'll be curious to hear what that is, because I know that this is a pretty controversial entry in the series. You know, the general idea is that Stephen King doesn't know how to end a story, and when he's been working on a story for 35 years, that magnifies it to a certain extent for a lot of folks. I can, make an argument, or maybe you would make an argument about whether or not endings, necessarily matter as much as a lot of people think. But I think that an undue amount of attention goes to the choice that King made for how to finish this up. And that ignores a lot of the really cool stuff that happens, especially in the middle of this book.
Yeah, a lot of this stuff is fun, and also that this could just be an age thing. Like when I forget how old I was when this came out. I don't remember the year that it came out, but I had a lot more expectations of stories to end, and I wanted everything to be wrapped up in this great conclusive thing. And as I've gotten older and experienced more media in various formats, I've let go of a lot of that. Like I'm willing to have things just kind of end and be okay with it if I enjoyed the ride there. Yeah. So I'm a lot less harsh on stuff for the ending. Although again, I do like the way this ends, and I like the way this book begins a whole lot. This first chapter, or this first section, which is 7 different chapters, is just so full of action and cool shit happening, and just the descriptions are like swing wildly between just utter joy and utter disgust. Like it's Stephen King at doing some of the most Stephen King shit that I've ever seen in my life.
Paper-like skin.
Oh, dude! All of the Mia at Mordred stuff just I listened to it today as I was driving in my car. I want to talk about that a little bit because I don't normally do audiobooks, but I did for this. And just the descriptions of Mia and Mordred, just like I was reaching to the knob on my car, being like, I just need to turn this down a little bit. Like I don't need it. What if the Starbucks lady hears this? It's going to be creeped out.
I was at a drive-thru at the Tim Hortons this morning, listening to this to refresh myself. And I was like, I'm going to switch over off of this because I don't need the person handing me my iced coffee to hear about an erect baby penis.
Yeah. Dude, what? That's not good. That's not good for anybody, Stephen King.
Yeah, that's it. Oh man, it's unsettling, is what it is. Yeah, I want to hear your opinion of the audiobook version of this. I'll let you start on it, because that's how the primary way I've been consuming these for the show.
So this is I don't normally do audiobooks. I find myself kind of drifting out of paying attention to them. So especially because I'm driving for work, and a lot of times I'll get phone calls and things like that. So I have to take phone calls for work, and it just interrupts the flow. When I'm reading, I like to sit down and read. But I was kind of pressed for time, and I wanted to refresh my memory a little bit, just like you said. And so I was like, I'll just buy the audiobook and see what's up. And I had a good 4 or 5 hour drive today, so I felt like it was the perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't remember the guy who does the voice for this.
It's George Guidall. Kind of an old hand at audiobook narration.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
I really enjoy his voices for a lot of these characters. So, the way that he does Jake, or the way that he does Per Callahan, especially, I thought was just brilliant. I cannot stand the way that he does Eddie. I think his Eddie is just awful, and I hate that it's so good, and I hate it that it's going to overwrite what I think that Eddie sounds like, which is a lot younger and a little bit more cool.
Yeah.
So it was just an experience hearing him and as somebody who does podcasts, right, like I'm always kind of fascinated with audio production nowadays, and just hearing how quickly he goes from narration to voice work to narration to voice work and then back again. Just like, how many cuts is this? Like, I want to see the MP3 file, right?
I'm picturing the page and how it's marked up, because like, you know, just like, so does he have like different people highlighted in different colors so he knows what he need, like, so he can look down the road and see like, I better have Roland ready for this. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, just how quickly he jumps in and out of it, and it was a fascinating listen. I got through, I think, 5 of the 7 chapters in my drive today. Again, phone calls and work and whatnot, so I didn't get through the whole thing.
Yeah.
But I was actually thinking, like, I might try to listen to all of this. Like, if I'm on the podcast again, like, I might try listening to it that way, just as a new and fresh experience, because it was like all of the weird monster voices, the way that he just jumps into that can talk language, like both feet forward, all of the stuff he does with Detta that when people would talk about it in the Slack, I was like, I'm sure that's got to be terrible. Like, Detta just does it, but he just like rolled into it without any sort of, like, if that was, again, just going back to podcasting, like, I would have to apologize before I did a voice like that, right? Like, like you'd be compelled to. You wouldn't be able to help it. But yeah, he just jumped into it, and it was a fresh experience. It was a really nice way to listen, or nice way to experience the book.
Yeah, no. Just so George Quidall, you know, he's an old hand at audiobook recording. Like, you know, anybody who has listened to, let's say, more than 3 audiobooks will have probably heard him do something. I really appreciate, you know, both his and Frank Muller's performances, and the audiobooks in general, because like that's how I get the pronunciations for stuff. You know, honestly, when you're dealing with fantasy languages, you know, it's nice to not have to worry about how to decipher that, especially when you are trying to, you know, comment on and re-relate these stories for other people. Something that I appreciate, especially about this book, or any, and also the previous one, the parts that took place in Maine, where like the character's dialect has been written in order to sound as though it's, you know, from the down north kind of Yankee accent. Like George Goodall just leans into it really, really hard, and it does a very good job of drawing the comparison between the Calla and Maine, right? Especially
absolutely.
Like, yeah, I think that like the performance of John Cullum is really, really good.
Absolutely. I finished the last 2 chapters of my reread with just reading them, and as I was reading them, I was thinking to myself, I really wish I had time to listen to this, because I would be so. Because John Cullum, especially at the end of these chapters, like really, that's like some of his strongest stuff, and I was just, man, I really like to get back and talk to that dude some more. I would like to see what happens with him. Also, I realize I'm probably like breathlessly explaining to somebody how good Elton John is in 2019 right now. And I just want to apologize for that, right? Like,
no.
I just realized, like, oh, I just found, you know, Radiohead, and I'm like, oh my god, you cannot believe how good Kid A sounds. And people's like, yeah, man, it's 1998. What are you doing?
You know, speaking as somebody who is enthusiastic about narration and, you know, listens to, you know, lots of audiobooks, it's fine. If you're genuinely excited about something, it is a joy when somebody discovers it and gushes. Okay. So do not worry. I will speak for everybody that you are afraid that you embarrass yourself in front of. Do not worry. Yeah. So normally I have like biographical information at the start of these. However, I mean, all of these were written basically in the same gasp. After Stephen King's car accident, or is it a car accident? Yeah, no, when he was hit by that van. So, you know, like they came out relatively in short order, one after the other. This came out on Stephen King's birthday, September the 21st of 2004. It has kind of a different structure than the other books. I think the only one that I can think of that has a similar structure is Wasteland, which is very much 2 different books put together. The story of, I forget the names of those different parts, but the story of, you know, Jake rejoining the ka-tet, and then the story of getting into Lud and then getting out on Blade the Mono. Here, this is I think 5 different sections here of varying lengths, and each of them gets their own subtitle, which a lot of them have been used before. actually, in the series. So, reproduction, revelation, redemption, resumption, etc. All of those get folded back into this to highlight the different, kind of themes, I guess, that he wants to hit. So again, calling back to the previous stuff. And actually, I believe this is they're done in reverse order. So this picks up with reproduction, which is what I believe Song of Susannah was, then goes back to Revelation, Redemption, Resumption, which is the subtitle that he ended up giving to The Gunslinger when he did the 2003 revision for it. Yeah. And that'll make sense when we get to the end of this one.
It will definitely make a lot of sense.
Yeah. And regarding that ending, I would like to refuse comment on it in detail right now, just in case. I know that there are people who do follow along, even though these books are relatively old. That is meant to be a surprise to our characters. However, I want to return to the idea of like, okay, what is a good ending? What purpose does it serve? What can we expect out of this? And I'm going to draw an example from video games. Jeremy, have you played the Mass Effect games?
Yes.
Okay.
I've played, I tapped out of one, and I've played two for hundreds and hundreds of hours. I did like 2 or 3 full runs of 2, and then I played through 3 once.
Gotcha.
And I haven't played them since.
Gotcha. Okay. So you'll understand this. There was a big controversy about the ending of Mass Effect 3. People felt like the choices that they made throughout the series didn't necessarily matter, and that is a series that is very much about choice. And I didn't understand an awful lot of the the outrage about it. Because it's outrage about a video game, and it's hard for me to have, I don't truck with that an awful lot. But I didn't see the ending being like the stuff that happened right before the credits. The entirety of Mass Effect 3 is a wrap up to the series. Like that whole game is the ending, because you are watching from the start of it to the very end, all of these threads be tied up. Right?
Yes, absolutely. And at a certain point, like, no matter how complex your game is from a decision standpoint, like, it has to either you have to write 27 different endings and like go through that process, or you try to wrap up individual lines and go to one full, like, this is the ending for everybody, like, regardless of how your personal drama ended up, the world still explodes. Like, I don't quite remember the ending of Mass Effect 3 that well. Like, I played like all 5 of them or whatever, like however many they released, I went through all of them. But yeah, like at a certain point, it's the journey that you're going through to get there, and that very much feels, from the very opening of this book, it feels like that. Like our ka-tet is scattered; they're working to get back together with one another, and then once they're together, like it feels like a book of endings from the very beginning. Like it feels like at any moment anybody could die or get pulled away. Like Susannah during this, like the first time I read it, and even rereading it in 2019, like just thinking, I don't know how she's going to get out of this. Like, what is she going to do? Like, I don't know. What are they? It's like the ending of a Batman, Batman from the 60s of like, come back next week, folks, and figure out what Mordred's going to be like. Just picturing that 60s version of Mordred. I hope he has some spider repellent in that belt.
You got a bag of spider cider. Yeah.
But yes, it's very much like all of these characters dealing with their own personal stuff and kind of wrapping up. And yeah, like I said from at the beginning that I was into the ending of this, and we're not going to go into what the specifics of that is, but I just like it. Like again, there's one very specific thing that happens that I think is just really distasteful, and I don't want to tease that. So if you want to at me on whatever, like, I will tell you. Like, but
how about this? I'm curious, because you're alluding to it. I'll just cut it out. Can you tell me what aspect sticks out? So that'll be a juicy secret until the last episode of the season. However, I think that relates to the ending of the book. What I would say to anybody who is listening to this, who is saying, "Hey, you're doing an awful lot of apologetics for a thing that to my ear and to my eye seems kind of indefensible," understand that the ending of this book is the ending of Roland's story. And the book itself, broadly, from the very start, the first chapter of this book, has us wrapping up, the story of one of these characters. We're going to see Callahan die this episode. Look at the event. I would ask, look at the events of this book as a broader ending and consider the individual endings that these people get, as opposed to kind of like trying to take the macro view. I suppose that's the view that I have in looking at this, and that has helped me really enjoy what goes on here.
And these are probably a lot of really good points that we should be bringing up on the last episode that we cover this book on. But it's also a thing, like, you can not like the ending, you can like the ending, whatever. You can also, like, I don't think that any single person would look at the Dark Tower and be like, it's perfect. You did a wonderful job. Like, all of this adds up. And they're like I'm, I get obsessively bothered with 19, and I hate the fact that he went back and rewrote a bunch of my favorite book of the series, The Gunslinger, a bunch of 19 bullshit into it. But at the same time, like, it's an artistic work. It's a creative endeavor. It's his. He can do whatever he wants to with it. I don't care. Like, it's up to me to enjoy it or not. But everything is going to be a little gnarly, especially when it's messy and creative. And Stephen King has never been able to write a very good ending. Like, it's very rare that happens. So I come into this like thinking, I want to know what happens to these characters. Whatever happens after that, I'm not as concerned with. And again, not saying that like I've matured a lot or anything. Like, I'm not saying I'm not gifted reader and such constant reader.
You're not
now, right?
You're not above it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, but it's something that I think came when I was younger. I was way more concerned with the last chapter of every single book, and versus nowadays where I'm like, no, I want to actually enjoy the book. I'm here for the story part, not the ending. So. Yep. Let's get into it.
Let's do it. We're going to start off with Callahan and the Vampires, which picks up right where the previous book left off. I think that might not technically be true, because I think the last thing we saw was what's her name, Susannah, going into labor. But one of the major events as things were getting in place was that Jake and Callahan were getting ready to storm into the Dixie Pig, and Jake was giving Callahan the rundown on how far he should stand apart. Basically giving like tactical rundowns as they walk into this den of cannibals.
It's really difficult for me to remember that Jake is 11 here, 11 or 12,
something like that. Yeah,
because he is, the balance, or rather the imbalance between him and Callahan is so great. Because he's literally lifting off of these like tactical, like, you need to stand 10 feet away from me. We need to keep him in between us at all times, unless we can't do the. And it all comes from Roland as his ka-tet leader. But it's just like, I'm 30-something years old right now. If I saw an 11-year-old and he tried to tell me what to do, I would just literally turn around and walk away. Like, he must be just such a force of personality at this point that it's so good. Like, I love Jake so much in this, especially in this, because he gets a little stuck during the scene and has to be reminded to move on. Yeah. But boy, like, he just kind of just nails exactly what to do here. Yeah.
And it is thanks to a lot of intervention that this goes as well as it does. But Jake gets them a good start. I'm trying to reconcile how I feel about, because I literally never had this thought, reconcile how I feel about Jake being a child soldier.
Hideo, do we need to get Hideo on the phone? See what happens?
Hey, Kojima, I got a question for you.
Yeah. This is Dial a Friend. It's just dial a Kojima and find out one fact.
Oh,
yeah.
Man.
I mean, that's something that I think throughout this book, I think from my perspective as a kid reading these books, like, these guys were all badasses. Yeah. And looking at this from the other side of a bunch of crazy political stuff that's happening in the world, and like a bunch of gun violence in America, like, Jesus Christ, like, there's a part in this where Susannah like thanks Roland for introducing her to this urge to kill, and I'm just like, man, okay, because you guys are badasses. And I think there's another section where Eddie refers to, I can't remember who it is. I think it's Deepno, where he says that he's a grass eater, and all grass eater, and he knows he's a grass eater because Eddie used to be a grass eater until Roland trained him to be a warrior. And I'm like, okay, calm down. Like, just because I have a job and participate in capitalism doesn't make me a grass eater, okay? But yeah, like, it's weird to think that as badass as these fictional characters are, like, this is an 11-year-old kid that you stole from his parents, brought into another world, killed, brought back to life, and have drug through literal hell in some cases to make a child soldier.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, just to zoom out very quickly, Jake handles it ably, except for that time he nearly shoots a cab driver dead. That was a bit much.
Look, if somebody messed with Rosie, I would do the same thing. I mean, they could have Avon, but Rosie is off limits.
The hated Avon. This restaurant is full of vampires, all three types. We've got low men, and we also have something relatively new. These Taheen, these humanoid creatures, humanoid people with animal heads. We find out that the low men are actually these things in disguise because they're kind of letting their masks slip. We saw this happen in Song of Susannah. As Susannah was being dragged back, she got her claws into the face of one of the women in here, who weirdly becomes kind of not a major character, but like a substantive character in the Dark Tower movie, which never sat right with me.
God, I have blocked. We did 3 hours on that podcast on that movie, and I have blocked all of it from my mind. I don't remember this chick showing up at all.
Yeah, no, she's the one who goes up to Matthew McConaughey. She's Matthew McConaughey's kind of lieutenant or something like that, or
what the hell is that movie?
He scars her face or something like that, and she works with Pimley, who isn't like a middle-aged prison warden in that movie. He's like a 20-year-old dude.
What is that movie?
Yeah, I don't know. I maybe the Blu-ray is cheap enough. I want to see the the special features.
Yeah, I'm sure those are real special.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Anyway, but we've got these Taheen here, and kind of a noteworthy one. I forget his name, but he's like a canary kind of dude. Jake, or I think Callahan shoots him. He goes away, but it's very kind of odd. I like that the doctor bugs make an appearance again.
Yes. Yeah. I love that, this is always purpose in life. This is what they've trained bumblers to do, right? The Billy Bumblers to do. This is, we have some bumbler-sized problems. So we need to invent a bumbler that can take care of these bumbler-sized problems for us, so we don't have to. I like when dogs have jobs. And I like it when Oi has a role in an encounter. Yeah. That he can fulfill that. How do you like the idea of Callahan, who has found the Sculpta, this turtle figurine that Mia had, and uses it to basically put a spell on all of these vampire people? Because it's something it's these little Deus Ex Machinas that kind of that I want to be bothered by a little bit, but also I have to take a step back and be like, he's writing himself into the books. It's fantasy. Who cares? At this point, he's holding away a little magic talisman around, and it's gone or Gan or whatever. And it's cool. It's just this is going to be what gets them through to the next level of the video game. And I'm listening to it this morning. I was way more excited by it than I have been in the past. I was curious how you felt about it.
So I like it quite a bit for two different reasons. One is kind of the differentiation between the white and the red. So the red being the Crimson King and kind of the forces of Discordia, they have a tremendous advantage on the board because the Crimson King is kicking it here physically and commands his armies and such, on making stuff and kind of exerting more direct kind of influence on the world, whereas the white kind of just, and this is a thing just traditionally, doesn't act directly but instead nudges people in the right directions through either coincidence, intuition, or inspiration. And quite literally in this world, because this is a story that is being written by Stephen King as the avatar of Gan and therefore the white, pulling this out, it is totally fine to my eye that there is this coincidence coming through, because that is how the force of good is using these people for what they need to do. So that's reason number one. I think it lines up quite well. That's why coincidence doesn't necessarily bother me. The other part of this that I like is that Callahan's reliance on talisman is a huge part of his character. You know, it's how he fell in Salem's Lot, right? Was that he had the thing, but not the faith, not the actual genuine belief that it would work. The fact that this is effective here, but it doesn't get him all the way, and it forces him to fall back on his actual belief. And right before he dies, he finds out that it is actually there, more powerful than ever, and he becomes like a holy gunman. I think that's all really cool, and I think that having the Shalpada here is like a neat little step on the way to that realization.
I also there's a real Stephen King line towards the end of this where he loses the talisman, and and that Stephen King says something to the extent of, and there it goes out of the story like a certain paper boat that some of you may remember. And I'm like, yes, Stephen King, I remember the book It. Thank you.
That was a bit much. That was a little self-congratulatory.
It is, but also like as a dude who in his teenage years like was just reading Stephen King a lot and just cherished every single time it would make a reference to another Stephen King book. Like that was like my MCU at the time, right?
Yeah.
Like that's it's, to make it very cheesy, but like that was all of those interconnecting stories, and maybe this is related to that. Like I still kind of dig that stuff with Stephen King, so I'm like I'll make fun of it and also kind of like it at the same time because I can hold multitudes inside myself, and I can do that.
Yeah, I sounded dismissive, but that's just because it is farcical on its face. I too love those connections, you know. Yeah, no. So I think we're on the same page there. It just like that, like every time that hits me really, that hits me really hard, like disproportionate to the stuff around it. I mean, like a major character's dying.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a thing later where Susannah is like hearing voices, and she says something to the extent of like Christine McDonald. I don't remember the actual name, and I'm like, who is that? Like, I need to go to a Wikipedia page and try to figure out this reference. And
yeah, I think it might have been. That might actually be an activist that she was referring to. Unless you looked it up, who is it?
I did not look. I was driving, so I didn't look it up.
Gotcha. Yeah, but yeah, Callahan, he's relying on this on this turtle because basically he just gets a whisper saying like, hey, you know, use this. So, you know, he draws the Ruger, and then says like, yeah, I know you can use this. And the Taheen and the lesser vampires, they are entirely transfixed by this, just like we saw happen with Mats and with the hotel clerk. You know, it's an object of fascination and command. This is not enough, though, because we are dealing with stronger vampires who do not necessarily pay any heed to this. And Callahan gets stranded up on a table and, weirdly enough, shouts at Jake in Roland's voice to go ahead without him, saying like, yeah, this is the will of the White. This is how this has to go. I have to go down so you can go forward.
And you know, Jake is so stunned by the events that are happening that he's, you know, again, he's a kid, he's a little boy. Like we have to say that he's a little boy. That even like hearing Roland's voice come out of Callahan's throat doesn't work as well. It takes another voice saying, you know, they're going to get Oi and they're going to kill him and drink his blood in front of you before he actually is like, oh yeah, we need a GTF. We need to go. We got to get out of here. I got a job to do. I don't know why I'm hanging out with these vampires. I got other stuff to do. And then before he finally goes, which I think is interesting because like it's just hammering home that bond between Jake and Oi.
Yeah, it's concern for his grandpa over, you know, concern for his adopted son or surrogate son. You know, anyway, you know, just like he is responsible for this creature, you know. My appreciation for that relationship between Jake and Oi has gotten a little bit more rich since I got a pet.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Interesting. I never had pets. Like I would have a cat here and there, and my sister would have a dog or something, but I never really had like my own pet or anything. And even Autumn and I like adopting the dogs and everything. Like it's been like those are my dogs. Don't get me wrong, but like it doesn't quite hit me. Like it doesn't, like this stuff doesn't bother me as much or anything. Like it's just still about the same level. So that's interesting. Like you got a cat and you were like, oh yeah, this is my Oi. I am going to protect her and never forget the face of her father.
Yep. Yeah. It's weird. I never had pets growing up. You know, just it wasn't a thing that really happened in the house. So this is the first time I've like bonded with an animal. Yeah. Also,
I don't think we've spoken since you've gotten your cat, but you named your cat after my grandmother. So props to you.
Did I? Okay.
For a while, my grandmother, on her first marriage, she was Greta Green Greer.
Whoa, GGG.
Yeah. she was the hardcore gamer before there were even gamers.
Yeah, I just to be fair, I just left her with that name. They gave her that name in the shelter, and I just I thought that it was appropriate because she is a proper lady, pretty cat.
So yeah, Callahan makes his last stand here, right?
Yeah,
and I like this moment where one of the vampires says, just put it away. Like if you're such a man of faith, just put it away. Which is of course how Salem's Lot ended, like you mentioned a few minutes ago. But this time Callahan just puts it away. He's like, I don't need to question my faith because of you. Like if you're going to come at me, come at me.
Mm-hmm.
And then like he literally starts glowing blue. Like as you said, become a holy gunman, which is way better than a holy diver. So Dio, look out. But like the culmination of all of his faith and all of his wandering across America and his guilt and his experience in another world and trying to come to grips with everything that's happened to him and into this one moment of pure faith, I think is really brilliant. Mm-hmm. And it's a really good send off for a character that frankly I never liked that much. Mm-hmm. I like Salem's Lot. I think it's a good book. I didn't like Callahan was just Callahan. Like I was way more into the vampire side of that story.
Yeah.
And then like he really rubs me the wrong way when he's like, you shouldn't abort the demon baby in the last book, and so I just really didn't like that. And he's always been, especially in Wolves of the Calla and Song of Susannah, he's just kind of a pompous prick a little bit. Mm-hmm. And this is a really good send off and a really good way to make me like a dude that I didn't particularly care for before this.
Yeah. I don't know. I think that I am finding myself weirdly susceptible to stories about faith or to faith as a concept, and so to see him, I don't know, have this recognition about what the nature of this power is, the quote here is, I needn't stake my faith on the challenge of a thing such as you, and just saying like, yeah, no, like I do not need to prove it against you. All I need to do is rely on it, and to see that become literal power that lets him cave in the heads of these monsters, at least until they overwhelm him.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, yes. It's a really good kind of like not full circle, because by the time we meet him in Salem's Lot, he doesn't have any faith. Like he's incredibly jaded about just about the church in general, in a kind of shitty way, because he's like, we need to get back to to old religion, which is just an oddly regressive position. But here he comes around when he understands exactly the nature of the evil that they're up against, to the point about his weirdly pro-life stance when it comes to demon babies. Like now that he's looked, like here in this scene, when he has seen the nature of the monsters they're up against, like what the Crimson King actually trades in, he thinks, he calls himself a fool for not taking care of this, or for standing in the way of that, for standing in the way of the Mordred, the abortion of Mordred.
The abortion? Mordred? How does that?
I don't know. I tried. So I'm going to admit, I tried a bunch of those, and I wrote that down. Because I wanted to make that joke, but I didn't want to trust my stupid dumb brain to arrange the syllables correctly. So what I have in the notes is actually what I. Sorry, it's so lame to admit that you prepare material.
No, it's not. It's not at all. What is hilarious to me is somebody finding the notebook where you wrote a bunch of different combinations of abortion and Mordred on it and going like, oh, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, I know you like horror games, but dial the fuck down, man. What are you doing?
Maybe, I don't know, go on vacation. Yeah. But this is the end of Callahan's story. He gets overwhelmed, and he issues his prayer that Roland, you may breach the tower and climb to the top. And as the vampires close their jaws over him, because even faith is not enough when you're surrounded, in this instance at least, he shoots himself in the head, which is kind of a little bit of an echo or a mimic of the scene when he escapes from Sayre, and the low men who bring him in after they basically catch him murdering all these vampires in New York when he leaps out. Yeah.
And this is like you said, this is powerful. Like this is him denying these people that have been after him for a long time, and it's a moment of what's the word I'm looking for? Not betrayal, but it's a moment of defiance.
Yes.
In the face of all of this evil, and like he may have committed suicide, but he still went out swinging, right? Like that's the point here, and it's. Like I said, it's a fitting into this character, I believe, and it's obviously going to shake some of these characters, especially Jake. It's definitely going to shake Jake, which is my new product that I have coming out from.
Jake.
Yes, yeah. Shake and Jake. Yes, that sounds way too good. Someone has done a Shake and Jake. We just don't know what it is, right?
Yeah,
like someone has done a Shake and Jake.
It's out there. That has to be. Yeah,
it's too much of a rhyme for someone not to have done already. Yeah. We could probably get Duckfeed branded Shake and Jakes right now if we just looked online at the right spot. So
let me see here. Mojo Outdoors Shake and Jake motorized motion turkey decoy.
Oh, I am definitely buying one of these. This looks too good.
Let me see. Yeah, no. Oh, they're $98. Patreon.com/Duckfeed.tv.
Look at this duck. Look at this motion turkey decoy. This is great.
That's pretty good.
I am going to put one of these in my yard. This is great.
You're gonna get a bunch of turkeys around there.
I wonder what powers this. Anyway, I'm sorry, everybody.
That's okay. You couldn't say it and then not have me look, or not have both of us look. It was out there. So we're gonna leave Jake, and we're gonna go over to Eddie and Roland up in Maine in 1977. The events of this first kind of book of this book, the Little Red King here, a lot of them take place in parallel and they intersect in a few ways. So we saw one of those with Roland's mouth coming out of Callahan's, or Roland's voice coming out of Callahan's mouth. But yeah, it's going to be kind of difficult to untangle these. Just understand they're all going to end at the same place. But we're in chapter 2, Lifted on the Wave, and Eddie is saying like, okay, well, if we're going to get back, our best chance is to go into go to Turtleback Lane, where we've got all these walk-ins coming over. Likely this door that is there that will remain when the Prim receded, that primordial chaos, all that magic. When that drained away and just left our world, it was probably activated by King's proximity. Remember when King moved over to his place? That was about when these walk-ins started. But as they're on their way, oops, no gravity. The car is lifted off of the road, and they're floating around inside with all of Tom Cullum's car junk before they flip Toadach.
Stephen King describes all of the car junk in this vehicle no less than 4 times in the 7 chapters. Like, it comes up here, it'll come up when they come back from the wave, it'll come up when we go over to Susannah, who sees the other half of the wave. Like, it's every time, and it's the ashes, and it's a quarter, and it's a doormat, or excuse me, a floor mat. Like, it's just, I don't know what, like, it's like his holy trinity of items that are in a car. And I'm like, I get it.
Yeah.
I know what's stuff around them.
I drive a car. They're filthy.
It's really fascinating to me that they are going to appear naked with all of this car junk around them, because I feel like if the car junk comes, like my Wrangler buttoned up blue jean shirt should also come with me, right?
Yeah. Or like weirdly it would be floating next to me.
Yeah,
because living stuff is just a little bit different than the non-living stuff. I've got no idea. I couldn't square that.
What if Roland and Jake just appeared to Susannah like as Crisscross from the 1990 rap group, just wearing their pants backwards, right?
Yeah.
Like, just the Prim really fucked him up and made him into a rap group. That's what I'm here for.
Oh man.
He describes this quite a bit, and I like this idea of this tidal wave like rolling along the beam. And Roland talks about his teacher, whose name I can never pronounce correctly. Vene. Kind of describing this to him and he calls him Gabby because he doesn't talk so much. And I just like Vene just kind of like fucking with Roland. It was calling him Gabby all the time. Like, that's really good. Yeah. Until Court makes him stop.
It's not fair. It's not fair to tease the boy. Hit him with this stick instead.
Yeah, chill out, Court.
Yeah. No, this is good. So what happens is, it is not necessarily a beam quake. The beam hasn't broken, but there's a ripple that goes along, and it has kind of pulled them up. And the idea is that, you are sent between the worlds, but it gives you an opportunity to see something that you want to see. Again, kind of thinking about, how much of the travel that is done here is done through intention by concentrating on the place where they need to go. That's how they're going to get back to New York, by going through that particular door. But the beam's in trouble. Part of that lesson that Van A gives is that, hey, the beam will sometime talk to you. We're going to see that actually, as this goes on, when we get into the Blue Heaven portion of this, and we start dealing with the breakers. The one detail about the car junk, not to dwell on it as much as Stephen King does, but when he is listing the items and he just says the world's oldest peanut.
Yeah. What?
That's just good. I like that. That is a good phrase.
John, clean out your car. Go to the vacuum place. Just get it out of there. Get all those weird peanuts out of there.
It costs like $1.
Yeah, I mean, it's a buck, and what was it, 77? I doubt it, right? Like, this has got to be a quarter to go to the vacuum place.
That's probably like complimentary. I don't know. Mm-hmm. It's weird.
Maybe so. Yeah. Maybe so. I don't know. Man.
But they're taken to two places in sequence here. This is a relatively short chapter, but this is kind of the connective tissue. It's why they appear and how they get some of this information. First, they appear naked over Susannah's hospital bed in Fedek as she is, going through labor. We're going to see this a little bit later, but they only get one thing out of this. She says the word chasset with great effort. This is pulled from a rhyme that we have heard, at least over the past 3 books here, from, I believe, Roland's childhood. Chasset, bring enough to fill your basket.
Yeah. And of course it means, 17, 18, 19. So 19 is chasset. Yep. And it's, all of these memories are tied up. There's some real weird, like, mother-son stuff here where Roland remembers being a child and wanting to marry his mother, which I think is a very natural thing. But Stephen King just runs it out for 3 sentences too long. He's like, we're going to get married and have kids of our own and live forever. And I'm like, okay.
No.
You don't need to go that far.
Pump the brakes, buddy.
But more importantly, like the stained glass that reflect the colors of the rainbow, like, and as we know, like the actual colors of the rainbow, which is a very big important detail in the Dark Tower, and just all of that stuff. Like, boy, Roland just, like, Ka had it out for that dude from the word jump, right? Like, he just, like, Ka was gonna fuck with this dude for all eternity, and it just, like, even from when he was a kid, his mother has seen him the word 19. Like, it's just poor Roland in some cases, right?
Yeah, Ka he's Ka's fool.
Absolutely.
That's right. I think that's the high speech for that. I don't know. I forget. So that's one of them. That's going to be a password later on. The other one, they're taking the Dixie Pig, and this is where Roland and Eddie possess Callahan to convince Jake to go on.
Did we? I can't remember if this was in the last book or not, but when they go into the Dixie Pig, they see this giant tapestry. Was that in the last book? Did y'all talk about the cannibal party?
Yes, we talked about the Last Supper, but they're eating a baby that's roasting on a spit instead of a chicken. Yeah,
I thought you had talked about it. Roland just seeing this and immediately, like, recognizing it for what it is was really interesting to me. Just immediately going to exactly what it meant and having all of these things as he sees the low ones. Or the type 1 vampires, the grandfathers, and realizing, like, this tapestry makes a lot of things click for him that hadn't clicked yet. He's like, yeah, I should have probably been paying attention to this. Yeah. Like, now I understand what these things are and maybe what to do about them.
Yes.
And then also, like, possessing Callahan, it really harkens back to Drawing of the Three, when he, comes forward to possess Eddie or Susannah at various times. And it's just amazing how practiced Roland is at this now, that he just becomes... There's a line in here. It's like, if he had to think about what he was doing, he wouldn't be able to do it. But Roland's not practiced in thinking about things; he's practiced in doing things, and that just really speaks to Roland's character. Of like, I'm just gonna reach out and, like, take over this dude's vocal cords. And you're like, wait, excuse me. Like, there's a million nerds on 4chan, not 4chan. Let's not say 4chan. No, there's a million nerds on Twitter that are raising their hands. Like, excuse me.
I'm sorry. Like, you haven't demonstrated this ability before. He kind of did it. We're gonna see something later that's kind of like this, but is way more ridiculous. Like, yeah. So something else that he does. This is where we learn about the Taheen. He recognizes that the Taheen are in play, so he recognizes them from his previous travels, and they're serious business.
And he yells at Jake to hurry along, and then he gets pulled out of Callahan's body because this tidal wave is pulling him back out. Like he gets sent upwards. And then he hears like Eddie's voice coming out of Callahan to say, they're going to get Oi or whatever. And it's just interesting to me. And I think the book remarks on it of like Eddie had more of a connection or was able to resist the wave more or something to be able to kick Jake in the ass to get him out of that room, essentially.
Yeah. Eddie makes a lot of like last minute saves in these last two books, actually.
Eddie is the guy that you want on your Darkest Dungeon team.
Yes.
Like he's the guy that's going to come through every single time.
Yeah, no, you may be beaten and battered, but Eddie's going to be the difference between walking away or not. Yeah. And that's what happens here, actually, because without Eddie making his call in chapter 3, segues, without him, insisting on this, who knows what would have happened with the Tech Corporation or with the plot of land or with the Rose, if, Cal Tower was left to have any power over this at all.
This hand read over what to do about this stuff isn't my favorite thing in the book.
No.
It's very much taking this grand fantasy epic and boiling it down to like some paperwork. We saw a little bit of this in Song of Susannah with Aaron Dipno and Calvin Tower. You have to sign this and we need to do that and all of this stuff. And this, if you're going to hand wave some shit away in a fantasy novel, like maybe hand wave all of this corporation making stuff. And at the end of this, we get some really cool stuff that John Collum does that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
But man, it feels like this goes on for like 10 pages, maybe 20 pages too long, that it's just him, it's Eddie and Roland sitting in this car and like discussing their options, none of which are good. And it takes them a while to come out, which I guess it's supposed to feel very natural. And like, how are we going to do this? But it just goes on for way too long for me.
Yeah, like there are a couple of chapters that are like that in this. Like the in the jungle section, but the hand wringing is a good way to put that. Where it feels like you could cut the deliberation and like maybe come into the scene all like at the phone booth,
or come back from the car or come back from the wave and like land in your own body and where everything is scattered and Eddie looks up and realizes, like, oh, hey, we got to go back to Column. And Roland's like, what do you mean? And he's like, no, just listen. And then, like, one of those patented Stephen King chapter breaks of, like, later.
Yes.
And then, like, it's just all done. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I just... and you're right. The In the Jungle stuff, I'm going to get... rereading that for, like, another time through this. I was skimming. I was going fast through that. Yeah.
Not great. But, yeah. And I agree with you that like where this ends up is pretty good. I don't know why he felt the need to show his work on this one. So what's happening here? Roland really he wants to go. He wants to scurry. We've got a ka-tet to bring back together. Eddie says, "Hey, listen, I want to get back with Susannah more than anything. Use that as credibility. Believe me when I say we have to do this." Because we've got this piece of paper that says, the Tech Corporation owns that land. That's not enough. We need resources. We need like an infrastructure to back this up. We need Holmes Dental. Like if we can prove that Susannah is still alive, and if there is anybody there who can, who that will matter to, it's probably going to be Moses Carver. We need to, go and talk to him, but we don't have the ability to do that. And if we leave here, we can't come back because of the way time moves in Keystone Earth. So they go down this big list and they spend way too long and eventually say, okay, John Cullum, like he's the literal bottom of the barrel. Seems like a solid guy. He didn't necessarily balk at anything we said so far. We just have to hope that he didn't follow our directions.
Eddie thinks for a while, just Stephen King getting up his own ass, like, well, maybe maybe Susannah could come back to this time, but maybe she would be blocked because she's in our ka-tet, but maybe she wouldn't be blocked because she hasn't actually been back here, or maybe she would be because it's the future. And I'm like, oh my God, dude, let's just get to the point already.
Yeah.
Not to ham-bone it up about how bad this is. It's just egregious for like 20 or 30 pages.
Yeah. It seems like he's doing an awful lot of like hedging against plot holes in this.
Yeah.
Which does not speak of confidence. And there are, if you're worried about pleasing the pedants, like, don't make a story about time travel.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
The Russo brothers knew what they were getting into. That's all I'm saying. Like they were fully prepared for the but what about it? That came out of that. So,
yes. Yeah. They had the right attitude. So that's good. And Stephen King has shown that he can write a good time travel story. 11/22/63. I've been fighting off the urge to reread that book because I have so much other stuff to read, but that is such a good book.
It is a great book. The show is absolutely dreadful. Like I got maybe 40 minutes or not even 40 minutes into the first episode, was like, I can't watch James Franco be this serious. I just can't do it.
No. I watched the miniseries and I suffer through him for the actually like really good performance that the guy who played Oswald put in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But no, James Franco. Sorry, buddy. Good.
They eventually decide to go. They find some change in a box that's real lovingly described in that classic Stephen King way. They decide to go make a phone call to see if John Collum actually followed their directions and left, or if he's like Roland thinks, if he's at home just chilling. And I like this whole exchange. Like Roland being the fish out of the water in the modern world is very good. Like, can you say aspirin? Aston. Like, can you say what was the first sandwich that he couldn't say? And he finally just goes to po' boy or hoagie or something. Like hoagie. Yeah. Just say, can you say poor boy? Poor boy. Like that thing is really funny. It just like we don't get it, and I'm kind of happy that we don't. But like the actual interaction between Roland and these poor shopkeepers as he goes in and orders a po' boy sandwich with extra mayo would be really funny to me.
Yep, yeah. Just the turning hoagie into hoggy. So I need a hoggy sandwich slathered with cum sauce. And some Aston, please. Thank you.
Yes, it's really great.
Yeah,
Roland busting down on mayo for it looking like cum is really funny to me too.
I mean, it's also true. It's not the reason I dislike mayo. It's just it's one of many pieces of evidence against it.
Of course, yeah. Absolutely.
But yeah, I liked this quite a bit because I don't know. I love those sections in the Drawing of the Three. You know, when he's ordering the hot dogs and, you know, delighting at the taste of the Pepsi and stuff. Like, you know, to say a good thing about the movie, the scene when he's at the hospital and they're like listing off all of his injuries and stuff. That's actually really good. Yep. Yeah. Roland as the fish out of water is my jam.
I'm here for fish out of water scenes in general. So like one of my favorite fictional characters of all time doing, you know, a hoggy routine is I'm here for it.
The hoggy's on first. So they call, and Cullum answers because of course he didn't, or because of course he didn't leave. You know, and they chalk this up. There's a little bit of hemming and hawing, like he could have gotten out of town. He uses the police blockade as an excuse, but really it's just Ka. And also, I don't know, somebody who would believe their story probably also wouldn't be very good at taking directions. So Cullum proves to be very good.
Absolutely. Yeah. And Collum is just a fun character in general. Like he has a good sense of humor about him. He's like every good old boy that you've ever met, that is just a really nice dude who would help out his neighbor and help out you even if he didn't know you. Like he's just that guy. And you know, when you meet that dude as a kid, you aspire to be that dude. And I think that's the thing about him. Yeah,
just like Mr. Reliable and his like salt of the earth nature. Like I get a little bit of a Stuart Redman kind of vibe out of him.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Him and Stu would get along famously without any effort whatsoever. They would just literally sit down and start talking to one another and like trading jokes and whatnot. So.
Yeah. Way into it.
Can you explain this Child of Roderick scene that we get to me? Every time I read it, I'm always a bit confused. So they find this walk-in who has a literal talon coming out of one of his nostrils, and this in general looks like kind of glows green and looks disgusting.
Yeah, I like that his eyes are kind of like fused together, so he's like Sonic the Hedgehog a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and he said it reminded him of an egg with two yolks in the frying pan, and I literally pulled over my car. It was like, I need to take a break. This is too much. But I don't get the importance. Like I realize like the walk-ins are here to show us that the boundaries between worlds are thin.
Yeah.
And like these crazy weird slow mutants or Child of Roderick. But like it seems like Child of Roderick is such an evocative term, and Chevin of Chavin or whatever. And Roland like spends a lot of time like asking this dude a question and like honoring him in a way that Roland does is when he kind of puts on his royalty hat, which I guess is a crown, but let's just call it a royalty hat.
Yeah.
And it's like we're just gonna get to the thing where we find a hole between worlds and go through it. So I don't know why we're spending a lot of time like murdering this dude at honor, right? Do you get it? Am I missing something?
It doesn't bother me as much, primarily because I like how evocative the term Child of Roderick is, and the idea that this is, you know, just this tribe of slow mutants who, you know, against all odds still worship the white. I kind of see them a little bit as an echo of the Manny a little bit, in terms of being these eccentrics who hold old religion in the face of all this other stuff. I feel like this is a little bit cart before the horse, because yes, this is here to demonstrate the nature of the walk-ins, that like, oh, there may be a little bit of uncertainty as to like, okay, is this where the low men come through, or these evil folks or whatever? It's like, oh no, these are just people who like fell into just a bad dimensional hole and came through, and they were already bad off in a lot of ways. And him being so sick that Roland Mercy kills him. Like, I don't know, like being miserable mutants is kind of their thing. So that seems a little bit excessive to me. Like, I don't know. You know, we see Children of Roderick later on. But I don't know, this guy doesn't seem like that much worse off compared to them. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I don't know.
Let me ask you another question.
Okay.
If it was the children of John Roderick, would it be better or worse?
I would like that, because they would be doing stick fights, neighborhood stick fights and stuff like that. They would adhere not to the white, but to the doctrine of keep moving and get out of the way. I can't see Child of Roderick without thinking of Rod, son of Rodney from The Great Outdoor Fight.
Oh yeah! Oh my God! Yes.
So that is my primary carry away from this. To the point where, go ahead.
Oh, we were talking about my home remodel woes in the green room before the podcast, and the other day I was moving some stuff around the garage, and I came across my 3 giant Great Outdoor Fight posters, like the ones that he did that were so cool and over the top, like from different years throughout the competition. I love them so much, and the glass had broke on one of the poster frames, and I was so bummed. So.
Did it hurt the poster itself, or?
Didn't seem to. Okay. So I pulled all that stuff out and tried to move it separately. I'm gonna try to convince Autumn to let me put them up somewhere in the house again. They were in my computer room for a long time, but they don't really go with what we're trying to do. So I still like them so much. I want them to have a good home.
I love that. I love the Woodstock one. Like the 60s one is a really cool design.
Yeah, that's a good one. I have 3 of them, and they're all good. They're all great. Onstad does work. Anyway, they kill this weird mutant because I guess existence is misery. You don't get to have an existence anymore.
No.
And they roll over to Turtleback Lane where a giant storm is approaching.
Yeah. And now we're going to cut away to the VIP chapter of this section, Dan TD, which is where Mordred, who's a coming. Mordred's a here and Mordred's a hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I love that Susannah, even when she is in the middle of this horrible wrenching labor pain, is counting the people in the room, and like she has identified, like she's already claimed one of their pistols as her own for when she's going to make her move.
And this is all like through the lens of Roland, right? Like she talks about Roland is the one that trained her to do all of this, to count how many enemies are around her and how to, get herself to count the exits and to get out of a situation tactically and all that stuff. And man, like I think I have said this before on this podcast, and forgive me if I have, but there's just hundreds of pages of Roland teaching a class missing from the Dark Tower series that I would really like to, you know what I'm saying? Just like montage. Give me the 80s montage scene where we're running up and down stairs and remembering the face of our father at the same time. And I just
think about your dad.
Yeah. Think about your dad. Think about your dad. Run upstairs. Think about your dad. I can't do both. Roland, chill out. But yeah, like it's just it's really good. And you know, at this point, she like looks up and sees Eddie and Roland. You mentioned this earlier, but like the overlapping narrative of each of these chapters, I actually think this is really cool. Like I like this a lot. It could be way more confusing than it is, but like it's just very specific moments where these people talk to each other that you know exactly where everybody else is in time.
Yes.
So it's easy to hold together like these threads in your head.
Yeah, you got these nice like intersections between the three of them, so it forms like a really good like stable triangle. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Mia finally gives birth. As like right after Jake is cut off, his transmission's cut off. But yeah, Mia gives birth to Mordred. And Mordred is incredibly creepy. There are a lot of details. I understand that some babies are born with a full head of hair. Yeah, that happens. It's fine. Mm-hmm. The things or creatures that shouldn't have human teeth is kind of a like a horror trigger for me in a way. Like just picture a dog with human teeth. It's like not good.
Oh yeah, I mean any of this stuff is a Google search away. And like I heard you guys talking about it for the Sekiro episode about the carp. The carp just has a huge human teeth and it's very creepy. And yeah. Yeah, and tiny babies having a mouthful of human teeth is real disturbing to me.
Yeah, why does he need those? And he also, just to round everything out and be very, very unsettling, and to show, you know, how quickly this kid is developing, what have you, how unnatural he is. Let's say he is born with an erect penis. And I am my cursory knowledge of biology says that ought not be. That ought not be.
That ought not be. And I like how Stephen King goes out of his way to say that he's unnaturally large. Like, and Susanna's like, he's like the size of my pinky. And I'm like, okay, I could do with less detail. Like, you could just say erect penis and I'm fine. Like, you don't have to go into all of the details on the erect penis.
It doesn't need to be lovingly rendered is the thing. But like overall, as a complete kind of picture, I'm real unsettled by Mordred. You know, he ends up being, you know, I think a sympathetic character in the end, but as a baby who is covered in blood and still is charismatic enough to command the attention of an entire room. Yeah, no, it's this is not great.
Yeah, there's a moment here where when everybody is clapping as he cries for the first time, that even Susannah is caught up in it, and like she says, like I had the opportunity to grab the gun that I've been eyeing, and I just couldn't. I was frozen to the spot, and of course Mia, who gave up immortality as whatever prim demon that she was, to have this baby is over the moon, and just the detail in which they go into of like her kissing this baby all over. And like in that tense moment too, like I don't want to move over that, but the tense moment of like whether they're going to give her the baby at all. Yeah. And because, you know, that's been a thing. Like Susanna's been keep telling her, like, you're not going to get the baby for 5 to 7 years. That's not going to happen. Like they're just going to take it away from you.
Yeah. And like they're saying this stuff to her, and you know, Susanna's sending like, hey, don't believe their lies. Like it doesn't matter. Like you can be caught up in the moment, but no, this is not going to turn out great. Spoiler, it doesn't turn out great.
No.
Because Mia, she was not all together to begin with, but this completely breaks her. Mm-hmm. She, you know, is laughing insane at this point.
Yes, laughing, drooling, her eyes go over Susannah, and there's no recognition whatsoever, despite them having been literally mind melded together as of like 10 minutes ago. And she's just constantly how beautiful is my baby, my chap, my boy, my son, my Mordred, and just is going. She's just obsessed. She is insane with her obsession.
Right up to the end, her last words are, "Is he not beautiful? Is my son not beautiful as fair as the summer sun?"
And And listeners, that's after the baby turns into a spider and begins eating her nipple first. So like she's off the pail. She's out of it.
No. So there's a little bit of drama over, will she nurse the baby? Sayer threatens to bring in a wet nurse. Like, oh, they're waiting in the wings. Maybe should have taken them up on that offer, because as she gets ready to nurse Mordred, he begins to change. He changes into a spider with a baby's head, and he bites her breast off and starts drinking the blood like it's milk. And, she is, beaming to everybody, smiling, exulting. Is he not beautiful? As fair as the summer sun. And as he... Go ahead.
Stephen King excels at the description of, and I think one of the reasons he has the reputation that he does is that he inspires such revulsion and terror in his readers. And this is just classic Stephen King going into so much detail about this baby transforming into a spider as it suckles at its mother for the first time, about the hideous configuration, and about the hideous things that it's doing. Yeah. And it's, again, I mentioned this when I was talking about listening to the podcast at the very beginning, or excuse me, listening to the audiobook, like literally wanting to turn my radio down and be like, I don't want to hear this loud. Like it's so gross and it's so disgusting.
I can't skim over this when I'm listening to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the car wreck that you can't look away from, right? Like it's just you, and it's revolting and it's disgusting, and it's like the culmination of everything that this child is, which is brought forth by rape of demon rape and weird semen transfer and Crimson King and also Roland and all of this other stuff, and this immortal weird demon baby person surrogate. Like it's just that all of the grossest and worst stuff in the world turned into a baby that can turn into a spider, and it's crazy.
Yeah, and everything about this has been a perversion of what is widely considered to be a climactic moment of the miracle of life. Giving just general. I've not experienced it, but that is how that is what we are led to believe, that initial moment of bonding is a big deal, and just everything is inverted and kind of profaned by just the nature of this creature. Nursing, instead of being milk, it is literally the blood, and instead of just being this long coexistence, no, Mordred is so hungry, and we're going to find out his metabolism is so sped up because he is going to be developing at a rapid rate, that as he is sucking all of this blood out, he sucks Mia dry. We get this horrible description of Mia, again, smiling, as she kind of fades of all color. The description of her as like a drawing of a woman as opposed to an actual woman itself is really haunting to me. But she starts drying out and the color starts fading from her. Her face skin splits apart in this vertical line and powder starts pouring out as Mordred burrows into her head to basically mummify Mia alive.
I like to get lost into some details here. Like,
yes,
Mia is a weird immortal being that traded her immortalness for, mortality. Like, I'm wondering if he does this to everybody, or if this was like special mama powder that he turned her into. Wouldn't have happened to any other being that was just like straight up human or Taheen or vampire or what have you. Like, I wonder if this was like exactly the amount of gopher dust, I guess. I don't know what to call it. Like weird mama dust.
Yeah.
That he needed to be able to transform and to stay in that transformation for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
None of those details matter or in any way, shape, or form are ever going to come up. I'm just like, in my mind, I think about that kind of stuff sometimes.
No, the thought had crossed my mind too, because he definitely feeds on a bunch of other stuff, not necessarily by sucking it dry. I don't know. I don't think that I'm full of a bunch of stinky powder. Maybe under maybe under the right circumstances. I could totally see that.
I don't know, man. We're gonna be hanging out in the same Airbnb and Duckfest, so maybe I'll learn if you're filled with some stinky powder.
I don't know. Maybe we're in separate rooms. That's fine.
Keep your powder to yourself, Ross.
I can't help if it gets in the vents. But this is not a great ending for Mia. She has not been necessarily the best the most well-intentioned character. This is not a good death, let's say, but there's something weird about the fact that she dies ecstatic, like having served the basic purpose, of having brought this forward. The deal is culminated, even if it's not paid through, right? She doesn't get those years and years of raising the kid. She is literally just served the letter of the agreement, if not the spirit, right?
Yeah, and her mind literally breaks at the concept of this is what it was for, and
yes.
It's either accept total madness or to try to fight against this monstrosity that she has created, that she's brought into the earth, and instead she just accepts madness, and then it literally dies for this, and Mordred gets to live, which is what she wanted. So Mia's always been a very pitiful character. She's always been kind of a gross character, like all of that stomping around and eating rats and stuff was always super gross. I'm pretty happy to put her behind us, because the less Susannah mind talking that I have to suffer through to get to the good stuff for this story, the better.
Yes.
So I'm glad that we just got Susannah now, even though we're going to have a little bit more data than we're really used to. That's not going to really be a bothersome thing for me. But I'm glad we're done with Mia at this point, even though boy, what a way this is top 10 ways to go, right? Like that's top 10 anime betrayals. Your spider baby sucks you dry.
Watch Mojos. Worst deaths in fiction. Yeah.
Yep.
But during all of this, as everybody watches horrified, Susannah decides to make her move. She steals one of the pistols off of the nurses. It's really gratifying that she kills Sayer.
Yeah, like that a lot.
Puts two bullets in him, one for Mia, and one for Callahan, I believe.
And also pauses and thinks, like, I wish I had time to make him lick my stubs the way he made Mia lick his boots. But I have to kill him so fast. Like, I don't have time to do that.
No, there's no time for that kind of luxury.
I will say Stephen King writes these shoot 'em ups way better than he has any right to. Like, I always go back to the Eddie naked and with Roland and the drawing of the three, but like all of our shoot 'em up scenes in this book are really, really great, and this is no exception. Like, Susannah handles this room in a really satisfying way.
Yes, although I wish that she didn't shoot out Nigel's eyes.
Yeah, but I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
if you'd hung around Andy, you would probably have some notions.
And like, is like pure tactical. And like, she even apologized. She's like, "I'm sorry, bro." And he's like, "Yeah, no, that's cool. No worry. I got infrared. It's all right." Like,
well, I mean, he specifically doesn't do infrared. Like, he spends all this time whining about his eyes, and like, I do not know if the repair bay will be ready for me. And then he's guiding her. He's like, "Hey, do you need me to point you out?" And he's like, "Oh, I have infrared, but it is not as pleasurable. So what were you whining about, dog?"
Yeah, if you can just see, like, hey, look, if you go from a 4K TV to like a it's just 480p, like maybe you're like, this is not quite as good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like she handles this room very well. I like the idea that when she shoots Nigel, like, it sets off this huge blaring alarm, which she expected, and she like uses it to her advantage. Like, gunslingers be knowing how to kill people.
Yep. And it is like almost entirely through that situational awareness that we highlighted at the beginning of the chapter here. Yeah. So in the firefight, she manages to shoot Mordred, but he moves out of the way at the last minute, and it actually just takes off one of his spider legs. This is going to be a big deal later on, because that wound never heals. Whether he's in whatever form he is in. So he is speaking to Susannah telepathically, like a Disney villain. He is swearing vengeance.
Of course. I mean, he's like 4 minutes old. Like, I'll give him credit for that. The script's not that great, right?
Yeah, that's fine. I'm impressed, actually.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I was not this good at 4 minutes, right? Like, I barely strung 2 words together.
But you did it, and that's why you were in the paper.
Yeah. Also, like this kind of journey thing where she jumps up into Nigel's arms and she's like, "Take me away," and he's like, "All right, let's go." And then after some brief discussion, she realizes that there's one door left between Fedek and New York, and it's New York door number 9. And kind of along the way, some environmental storytelling of like, wow, like all of these posters make it seem like these people would come and basically be a tourist to all of our worst disasters.
I love that. It's so I like that the King's Men are just like, I mean, this is from the next chapter, but like selling tickets to 9/11.
Yeah.
Ugh. Yeah, no, I prefer that as characterization for how awful these people are, as opposed to, you know, Black 13. You go back to that episode to hear us being real weirded out by that particular choice.
I know Stephen King lived in New York for a while, and I'm sure, like, you know, it probably had a great impact on that. Like, this event probably had a great impact on him, and it's easy to remember that, like, this was what, 3 years after that, 3 or 4 years after that.
Yeah.
So, like, that the amount of September 11th, like, grief and angst was. I mean, like, it's weird in 2019 to think about how great it was. Like, I had me and Autumn were at a bar the other day, and I remembered that I'll put a boot up his ass country song came out, the red, white, and blue song, and I was like, and that people loved that shit, and I was like, you pick up and you look at it now, and you're like, this is just embarrassing and revolting. Like, what were we doing as a country? But a lot of this 9/11 stuff really, in Stephen King books, like, goes that direction for me. The same way, like, his obsession with the JFK assassination is kind of weird for me too. But this, like, just the idea of, like, visit 9/11 or, you know, visit any natural disaster it makes these people so disgusting that they would do this, that it works for me really well.
Yeah. There's kind of a similar idea in Doctor Sleep, which is in the Tower continuity to a certain extent. But the psychic vampires that you deal with in that, like, they, you know, feed off of pain and suffering, and like that was just a gigantic day for them. Like, they knew it was coming because they can feel it. You know, they can feel these disasters happening, and they can get there. But I think that, like, just by virtue of taking, you know, that book coming out long after the event itself, I think he had a better handle on how to deal with it, as opposed to it being this close and feeling kind of a little bit more strange than that, I think.
If you just on a completely lighter note, have you watched the What We Do in the Shadows TV show adaptation that they did?
No, not the TV show.
They added a I guess an emotional vampire, but it's like the most boring dude at the office who he feeds by just telling you the most boring story ever, and it's done really, really well. I know recommendations are terrible because nobody has time to do everything, but I highly recommend that show if you like the movie.
No, I keep forgetting the show exists, because, you know, even though I love the movie, it's hard. There's a lot of good television.
Too much.
So Nigel, he leaves Susannah by the one door that she needs to be at. He goes off to repair himself, and she just sits there. I love this line. All she heard was the rusty, dying wheeze of the machinery in the walls.
Extremely great.
Yeah.
Imagine sitting here, like, just putting yourself in Susannah's position and being like, "Oh, Jesus Christ, this is terrible. This is absolutely terrible and terrifying."
And she's like ringing everybody's psychic phone, just looking for updates, but she's not getting anything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
she's in the group text. It's just, where y'all at? Come get me. Thought we were getting wings.
Eddie,
where y'all at?
Eddie, you up? Can we
WYD from Susannah?
Let's breeze through In the Jungle, the Mighty Jungle, because this feels a little bit like a it is a Jake moment, but it is more about, like, his, you know, weird childhood, treating his nanny as a surrogate mother, but like nothing really happens here. We just kind of get a glimpse at that past, and then we also see a piece of, you know, old one technology or whatever. But Jake has moved deeper into the restaurant. There's a little bit of a comedy of errors with this midworld cook. He's talking to this cook saying, "Hey, you need to leave this restaurant," and he doesn't understand. Jake, like, stays there way too long, throwing the arises at the people coming through the door single file.
Jake, just leave. Why are you talking to this dude? Why are you trying to tell this dude to buy a PlayStation? He's like, video games, man. I'm like, what are you doing?
He's fine.
Just let him go.
Yeah. But as he leaves, he's so exasperated that he kind of doesn't hear the warning about the mind trap.
Yeah, and we could definitely breeze through this. We don't have to get into all the details. It goes on for far too long about him and his nanny, or his, you know, au pair or whatever it is. And okay, there's a machine that make your fears a reality. Got it. Okay,
Cool.
good.
Yes.
The way that he gets around this by basically doing a mind swap with Oi, and the comedy of Oi trying to figure out how to operate a human body, like Weekend at Bernie's his way through trying to like walk through this thing, is very hilarious to me.
Yeah.
And not used, if I remember correctly, for the rest of the book. Like they don't do this except for this one time, and
Right.
it's just real weird that they do this. Like, it's very strange, right?
It is incredibly out of place.
Yeah. This is like Bran Stark warging into something, right? Like it's way before the Game of Thrones. Well, I don't actually know when that happened in the Game of Thrones book, so it could have been around the same time. I don't know. But like it feels very like medieval fantasy, like bullshit anamorph kind of activity than it does and look, I know all fantasy is dumb when you get down to it. I'm not trying to make excuses for anything. It just, out of place is the good word. Like I don't particularly like it that much. And there's a lot of and this is, I say classic Stephen King a lot because Stephen King has so many tropes, but we get a lot of detail on all of the dudes that are chasing him that works in the idea of, I'm reading this story and I want to know about these people, I guess. But like, it's talking about it. They're all going to get murdered in like 40 pages.
Yes.
Like we know so much about Flaherty that's a dude that gets just fucking murdered in the next in the next chapter. He just straight murdered.
So I like the idea of Flaherty. Like, so the idea behind Flaherty, I think, is the cool thing about this chapter, which is, he works for the Crimson King. Like, of the group that he runs, he's the only human. He's the only hume, as they say. And he is like, he travels between these parallel New Yorks, like acting as an enforcer. I think that is really cool. It just happens to be alongside this comedy of errors. Hey, remember $1 Million Movie?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Because, just Jake walks into this, reality projector or whatever. After, admittedly a cool detail, walking along, not realizing what's happening and just seeing grass grow out of the tile. Okay, cool. Like, so the environment changing, but just the idea that he is held still by these dinosaurs. It sucks all of the, it sucks. Let's just say that it sucks.
And he gets through this by, doing the Animorph thing with Oi. I don't know if that, I've never read an Animorph book in my life. I have no idea.
He doesn't turn into Oi. He just kind of mind swaps.
Mind swaps. Okay. Yeah. I just assume that's what Animorphs do. I guess that's right there in the name, that's morph. But anyway, the way that the bad guys have to get across this is like actually shooting out the projectors, which like, oh, these are projectors? Like, yeah. Excuse me? Like, what? Like, are they using hard light from the Shi'ar? Like, are we in a danger room situation? Like, what is, like, it's just they like to put out 6 lenses before they break this old world magic technology. And I just don't like it. And there's a lot of that Weema Wep in the Mighty Jungle, like, bullshit song stuff that I don't really care about. So,
yeah, not a good song.
But eventually, he gets to the door, and because Oi had to, walk him a little bit, they slow down, and Flaherty and his group almost catch up with them. But he gets to the door. Susannah take a little nap on the other side, which is very funny. Just kind of drifted off. Which I mean, like, same girl. Like, catch your sleep when you can, right? Luckily, she wakes him in time to tell her the password, and he's able to slip through the door. And Flaherty is pissed.
Yeah, I know. He just missed him. Like, literally, like a bullet whizzed by his head as he passed through. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This takes us to a better chapter on Turtleback Lane, a chapter that matters, let's say, because Roland and Eddie, they meet John Cullum on Turtleback Lane, and I love this little moment because fuck Jack Andolini. Andolini and all of his dudes were arrested. So
Eddie lets this huge laugh, and I like that Roland has a moment of like when nobody can laugh like Eddie Dean when he's the most amused, unless it might be Cuthbert.
Yes,
so that could have been and I really like this. I was thinking about this as I was reading this because it's time to like let John in on their story so far, right? Like they have to do the catch up post basically, and this is done really, really well, and I think it's really exciting when characters that you have been following for thousands of pages have to relay their story to a character that's not that like is just experiencing this for the first time, because you get that, like, it's not quite a fish out of water thing, but you get that well, what about this kind of like fresh perspective on things? And it's just really fun. And John is a really good character for that. Like it just works really well. So them like kind of going back and forth and holding this palaver for a long time is really good.
Mm-hmm. I like the idea. Maybe in an hour and a half, I could summarize what happens in this series. Although that would make for a far worse podcast. I wouldn't want to pay for the hosting on that. But just Jake, picking up the story with himself, because Roland's story would be weird to start with, and relating that along, and John not being like credulous, because I think that like lends a little bit of like naivete or stupidity to it, but he's like, I don't know, we have these walk-ins, like I'm ready to believe anything based on what I've seen, like, hit me with what you got.
Just you guys are obviously not from here.
Yes,
like I can tell that just by smelling you. Like I can literally. There's a moment earlier where Eddie, I think he's on the phone with John, and Roland walks up and he doesn't even look around. He's like, because who else is going to smell like a different world up here? And which makes me think that that Midworld just stinks to high heaven. Right? Like it's the blight town of worlds is what Midworld is. And yeah, John just kind of accepts this and rolls with it, because at his core he's just a pragmatic dude, and he's willing to. If you put something in front of his eyes, he'll believe it if he can get his head around it. And he quit very quickly. I think Eddie says like he may look like a country cousin, but he's not stupid, and that's absolutely the case. Like he may look like he's from bumfuck Maine, but he's a really smart. He's a trig cove.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying?
Is what I mean. Like specifically, Eddie calls that phrase back up.
Does he? Yeah. Okay.
He does. Like, about John Cullum, he's like, yes, he is what the people of Love would have called a trig cove. And it's apt. It really is. Really, the only thing that John Cullum balks at is Antalith's sigil, the cross that Roland tries to give her, because it is magic, and he is willing to believe the evidence of his eyes as regards Roland and Eddie, but he worries that touching this will, bring some kind of terrible fate upon him. No, this is just a way to help convince Moses Carver that Susannah is still alive, because that's part of his mission.
Yeah, and this feels a bit hand wavy to me as well. Like, oh, we just made a magic talisman, and you can hear Susannah speaking it somehow. Like, okay, cool, whatever. You blow on it, you can hear Susannah's voice. Okay, cool.
Yep,
okay, cool.
Yep, it is a mystic talk boy. Cool.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, all right. This is the thing that the kid in Home Alone used. All right, gotcha. That movie's not out yet, but I'm here with you.
Okay, yeah, no, it's fine. I can imagine a kid alone. It's scary. Like, it's weird that's a comedy for kids, but okay.
And there's criminals trying to kill him. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah,
okay.
Right.
Sounds weird, but okay.
But yeah, he's supposed to go convince Moses Carver Susannah's alive. She's on this plan, and that Holmes Dental has a bigger mission than making toothpaste and doing dental caps and things like that. They need to merge the tech corporation, use the resources of Holmes Dental to act as a foil to Sombra and North Central Positronics, with John Cullum basically taking on this role as an executive vice president of Dirty Tricks. Go ahead.
You think anybody's made a StarCraft mod of just Tet Corporation, Sombra, and North Central Positronics drafted onto the... Because it would work pretty well, right? Humans and the Zerg and the Protoss. I haven't played StarCraft in years, but it would work kind of well.
Yeah,
right?
you could balance that, I think.
Yeah.
North Central would be the Protoss. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Get at me, StarCraft modders, and I'm sure listen to this Dark Tower podcast.
Yeah, no, it's fine. We talk a lot about video games. It's okay. I want the book about this. I want the book with John Cullum as the protagonist. Yeah. Like, so we talked about like the hemming and hawing about the contract stuff being kind of bad, but like corporate espionage between these two companies, and like going and foiling all of because like they're set up to, like, they say anytime they build a factory, it needs to not work. Anytime they try to acquire a piece of land, Tet needs to get it first. And, John Cullum is, he's talking about like, oh yeah, like we kind of firebombed that one place. But I'm just really interested in that particular part of the story, and the fact that he has this good long life after this. Well, I mean, 12 more years of kind of working in this high intrigue is really intriguing to me.
Absolutely, yeah, and I'm with you. Like, give me this comic book, or give me this book of short stories, or what have you. Like, I just want to see these dudes like making these decisions and struggling with them. Like, there's a moment here where he said, I had to struggle with the decision to break off with IBM because they showed more interest in working with North Central Positronics than they did with the TET Corporation, and that was a big deal. And all of that stuff is just super cool. Like, again, I want to read that book. Like, I just want to give me that book, please.
Yeah. But John Collins was like, yeah, sure. This seems pretty important, and, along with all of that, protect the Rose first and protect King second, because the Rose holds up this side of the beam and King holds up the other side. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so he takes the scrap of paper and he is given directions to never, ever let Tower do anything. And they part ways, and I believe Cullum doesn't appear in the story again. This is his ending as well.
Yes,
although we don't see it. We just know that he lives for 12 more years. And they approach this glowing door, this gigantic field with a still storm over top of it, just filled with scores and scores of children of Roderick. When they approach the door and concentrate on reuniting with Jake and go through.
Yeah, the description of this is really brilliant. Mm-hmm. I mean, just these things flying around, these colors, this huge lightning storm, and just like the approach of rain as it starts to kind of sprinkle or whatever. It feels awe-inspiring, and like also your property values on your lakefront house. I mean, what you know what I'm saying? Like, my dad has a little place on the lake, and if we saw this on a 4th of July weekend, we'd be like, all right, time to move. Like, we got to go find another lake.
Oh,
this is a bad lake.
I thought you were going to say on 4th of July, seeing all these lights, time to sell tickets. they talk about that. They talk about how, like, oh yeah, all these rich people who own these houses, they're selling because like terrible things are happening to them. Yeah,
very funny.
Yeah.
And Roland basically says, like, oh, I've been in communication with Jake. I know where they are. So you grab onto my hand, Eddie, and I will take us to the promised land. And they jump into this magical prim door that's not like a real carved door like we've seen, but just like a magical door.
It's almost like a thinny, almost, or something like that. Like, it's glowing.
Definitely feels like a thinny. Yeah. Absolutely. It's like a not sick thinny. How about like a valid thinny?
Valid.
Your opinions are valid. Thinny. You have worth. And then they just appear in New York because it's in 1997, right behind Flaherty and his boys.
Yeah, I love how Roland reads in the riot act. He basically gives them a chance to confess. And Roland says, "Thou are cowards after all, I'm sorry to see. They'd kill a priest and chase a lad, but not stand and claim the day's work. Thou are cowards and sons of cow." I want to know how he would finish that sentence. Because it's kind of cut off in the middle by the shots opening up. Sons of cow, what? What?
Grass eaters, man. They don't like cows.
Yeah,
it's the midworld.
No.
Sons of it would literally just be sons of cows at this point. Sons of steers.
But Roland and Eddie deal with them, and they finally pass the door, and we get the tearful reunion. The TET is back together. And this is good.
Yes, this just to call it out, like another great action scene of them doing the gunslinger thing where Eddie, like, when he reloads, he like rolls behind Roland, who rolls behind Roland, so that he can cover him while Eddie is reloading, and then like vice versa, that happening and just murdering everybody. And then that moment where Eddie says, he's Susannah, are you there? Through the door, and that super infinity long second that you are just, I think Stephen King writes about this, like the voice of your lover, not knowing if you were ever going to hear it again, and then you hear it for the first time, and Eddie says, like, his eyes are so heavy that he can't keep them open, and he realized they must have been heavy with tears because they just feels falling down, and then they tell him the password, and
he can't, like, he's not sure he can say it to get through, because
and
he's
this
choked up.
This moment where Jake approaches the gunslinger and says, I think he says, "Heil, Jake," and he says, "Heil, Father," and can I call you that? And I would, Roland is filled with this feeling that he's probably not felt in a long time, if ever, and it's one of the most touching moments of the Dark Tower series. Our ka-tet coming back together finally after what feels like 11 billion pages. Like,
yes.
Right? It just feels like so long.
It was literally just one book that they were apart, but it was a lot that they went through.
Yeah.
And just the end of this section, my father has come for me. Like, yeah. Mm-hmm. Because there's been a lot of, kind of messing around at the edges of that, talking about like, okay, what is the definition of din, right? Is it just leader? Is it king? Is it father? Things like that. Like that definition was played with in the prophecy that led to Mordred, things of that nature, right? But to actually have it be played out literally, to have this mutual acceptance, in spite, in the face of all that they had been through. Yeah, no, it's a really good moment.
It's one of those like fuck yeah moments, and then you realize like, oh, there's a bunch more of this book left. you were setting me up, like you were like you were setting me up to really really care about this because something terrible is going to happen to my friends, and this feels like a good time just to end the book, right? Like, okay, we're good, and they killed the Crimson King and rolled down the tower, and now we're done. So,
oh man, gonna come back together just to be blown apart.
Yep.
So, final thoughts about this section, Jeremy?
I mean, I think if you've heard me talk this long, you probably know that I'm really into this. Like it's a very successful opening section or opening book that really works. It highlights the strength of our characters with only a few missteps for me along the way. Just this whole section with Jake is a real big miss for me. Like I just don't care. I've never cared about his like nanny chick at all, and all of that stuff just doesn't work for me. But all of these action scenes, like all of the stuff with Mordred, all of this weird world traveling stuff that Roland and Eddie are doing, the John Collum setting up the corporation was super fascinating, and like learning in just a paragraph like this stuff that happens to him is super good. And I don't know, man, like it's just it's a hell of a start out of a book, and it's gonna be hard for me not to read more of this book. Like I'm in the middle of I'm reading The Expanse right now, and I'm on the last book, and I'm like, I just need to focus on that. I can't read The Dark Tower again. You read it 2 months ago.
No.
But it's you start with some of this stuff, and you're like, wow, I just need to keep going.
Mm-hmm.
So, what about you?
Yeah, no, co-signed. I don't know that I have an awful lot to add. I think that there are regrettable sections of this that if I was. If I could presume to edit, I'd probably, combine and compress some of this, get rid of on Turtleback Lane or whatever. Those are pacing concerns more than anything. I think that as a resolution to what we saw in Song of Susannah, it goes a long way toward, I think, justifying that book a little bit and how weird it is. It's kind of strange to read this and kind of think, wait, so why wasn't this the end of that book?
Also that, I think I think that's definitely because the end of Song of Susannah is such a weird cliffhanger that I just I don't get it. But maybe he just really like wanted people to feel like he was going to wasteland them and just make him wait for 8 years or something. Like I don't know.
He had announced the release schedule. Like he had said okay, you're going to wait a year, or no, like not even that. Like book 5 came out in 2003. Book 6 came out in like March of 2004, and then this came out in September. So maybe he was just, I don't know.
You can't trust authors though.
No.
They spend their time, being creative, and it's hard to write. It's hard to do that. So sometimes dates slip. Yeah.
So thank you very much, Jeremy, for hopping on.
Hey, thank you for having me again. I love doing this podcast.
Yeah, it's very fun. Where can people find you?
The best place is Twitter at JG Greer. That's where I retweet all of my various projects, which are far and wide. On the Duckfeed network, I have Days of Future Cast, which is all X-Men related stuff. On my side project, Monster of the Week, where we talk about Supernatural, the TV show, Two Hunky Bros. And on that network, I guess it's a network, we do a podcast called Thinking Face, where we talk about every single emoji. And
that is so good. I didn't know you were doing that.
Yeah. We're about 60 episodes deep now. It's 3 episodes a week, 3 to 5 minutes each. It's weird to talk about this show without like technically spoiling it, which you wouldn't think that a show about emojis would have spoilers, but here we are because we're doing some very weird stuff. And then me and my wife, Autumn, who has been on this podcast a lot, has started Dead Blood Club, which is going to be going through, it's a book club similar to Radio Free Midworld, except we're going to go through all of the Anne Rice Interview with the Vampire series. Yeah. And we've got one episode of that out now. We're going to be doing another one very, very shortly after this releases. And then we're going to be trying to keep up a regular schedule from that.
Yeah.
So all of that, just go to @JG Greer. You can find me retweeting all that stuff. So I won't give all the links.
Recommended. Yeah. You can find me elsewhere on the Duckfeed.tv podcast network here, different shows. You can watch my streams. I stream horror video games on Friday and Saturday nights on twitch.tv/DuckFeed.tv. We'll be back next time, I think, with either Everything's Eventual or Hearts in Atlantis, something like that. I want to do some of those introductions for Ted and Dinky. That is a weird sentence, but sentences. Yeah, we're going to be going through. We're going to be kind of interleaving some of those related works as we go on. But I hope that you stick around and enjoy your time with us. Patreon.com/DuckFeedTV is a way to support this show and a whole bunch of others like it. But most of all, please have long days and pleasant nights.